Got it. We are live.
Hey everybody, happy Saturday. We are back. I am sports mental health empowerment coach and couple marriage and family therapist, Dr. Lauren Pitts. That's my ace boon coon right there.
Y'all know. Good morning, y'all. This is Ronnie Ransome, former student athlete, resident in counseling. How's everybody doing this morning? How you doing, Dr. Pitts?
What's on your name?
Huh?
You gotta change that for next week. You gotta put your credentials behind your name.
I got you. Can I guess I can do that when it sends me the little registration thing, right?
You don't even have to do that. All you gotta do, like if you go into your settings on your computer and you can change how your name is displayed and it'll come up with your credentials all the time, regardless of what you're doing.
All right, bet. Well, I ain't got the alphabet soup behind my name yet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I plan to have at least I don't know if there's I don't know if every letter is represented in counseling credentials, but if they are, I'm gonna try and have a certificate just cause. Not that I actually practice that theory or that technique, but I just want it behind my name. I want my little signature stamp to be so big that it has to be custom ordered. And like, but let me stop, man. It is a beautiful Saturday out here, man. Look, we had our first frost, I think Wednesday morning.
We were under freeze warning. We were under freeze warning here too. It was funky. I was like, wait, I'm in Texas.
That's crazy that y'all have freeze. That's crazy that y'all get that cold as well. I guess there's no reason that Texas shouldn't get that cold, but it's always crazy that
I'm in the South. What do you mean? Hello? It's not supposed to be that cold here.
Well, fun fact. The Sahara Desert used to be a tropical rainforest 5,000 years ago. So,
okay,
things happen. Fun fact.
I don't even want to know why you know that.
Because I'm a firm believer, and see, people say you can know a whole bunch of stuff that's useless. I am against that. I feel like as individuals, you cannot know enough about this planet and this world. Like, why wouldn't I want to know a whole bunch of useless facts about this world? I'm only here once. I'm only here once, allegedly. I think my son has been here before, probably within the last 30 years. I can't prove it at all scientifically, but spiritually, he's been here before. These pandemic babies, they've been here before relatively soon. Like they've been here within the last 30 years on planet Earth, somehow, some way. But let me get off of that rant because as much as I'm affirming my fun facts of the day and stuff like that, we got a great topic lined up for you all, and hopefully our special guest will be joining us.
I need to email him and be like, "Are you awake?" Because he's on the West Coast.
Yeah, he on the West Coast, so they kind of they wake up when the sun wakes them up, and I admire that because I get woken up with baby feet in my neck, face, and chest area, so I'd rather be woken up by sun and some ocean breeze and waves and stuff like that. So, but anyways, we have a great topic lined up for you all today. Also, some things that have been going on in the sports world that we definitely gonna cover as well. But our topic today is affirming the man and woman in sports. By participating in a sport, an individual is making a social statement about who they are and how they want others to think of them. Yes, I agree with that wholeheartedly. An athletic identity is developed through acquisition of skills, confidence, and social interaction during sports. It plays a part in a cognitive and social role as well. So we always talk about, affirming, yourself and having a sense of self. But we also know that out of all the hats we wear, our athletic identity for a lot of us, we cherish, we that is probably the biggest identity that we identify within ourselves. And we cherish that, and we put a lot of pride and effort into that identity in being known as, whether it's a football player, basketball player, softball player, whatever the case may be, that is who we are for a majority of our younger years and everything. So what is that really like? What are some things to, help manifest that and help manifest, your athletic identity and things like that in a healthy way? I think that's the biggest thing, talking about how we can do that in a healthy way, because I'm a person who has lived through it before. I would feel like I had a very unhealthy athletic identity. And we'll talk about, how to spot the difference in those and stuff like that later on. So Great topic lined up for you all today. Also, as far as some quick HBCU news, Dr. Pitts. So I think I sent you the article, I think Wednesday or Thursday.
Yes.
And so for those who listened last week, our topic was, pride in sports, the LGBTQIA plus community in sports and everything. Well, just this past week, Hampton's Byron Perkins is the first HBCU player to come out as gay. And so I'm gonna just read a quick little portion of the article. So as Hampton defensive back Byron Perkins made history Wednesday by becoming the first football player at HBCU to come out as gay. Perkins, a redshirt junior from Chicago, made the announcement on his Instagram account story saying that it was time to stop running away. I've decided that I'm going to make a change and stop running away from myself. I'm gay, Perkins wrote. Let it be known that this is not a decision or a choice. Yes, this is who I am. This is who I've been. This is who I'm going to be. First of all, shout out to this young man for being able to have the courage of his conviction and be able to come out and stand on who he is, his identity, and who he feels most comfortable with himself being. And we talked about this last week too, and I gave an example, of us having a teammate at Virginia State who also, once again, we ain't necessarily have a full-blown conversation about, his sexual orientation, not that we needed to, but we knew. And we were fine with that. At the end of the day, once again, he was a part of the team. He was family to us. We took care of him. We protected him. He was one of us. Who you with and who you decide to sleep with, bro, that's outside of football. That has nothing to do with football. And that has no bearing or impact on who you are as an athlete or a football player. But we know, unfortunately, a lot of times there are some people who have, those type of mindsets and whatnot. But, shout out to this young man right here. And so far I haven't heard any negative things coming out about this or any, negative things from his teammates. So, shout out to his teammates, shout out to Hampton University for being supportive and understanding of, him coming out and making this decision. It is their homecoming weekend this weekend. So I'm pretty sure a lot of the alumni and stuff, if they see him out on campus after the game, before the game, showering with love and everything. So, hey, once again, who you decide to sleep with and love and whatnot should have no bearing or any type of decision or influence in your overall identity, especially your athletic identity. So shout out to that young man. Outside of that, I don't think there was any other HBCU news that I'm aware of. Other than something. Oh, what's up?
Two things.
Go ahead.
So did you see the 60 Minutes interview with
Deion Sanders?
I
did not see. I saw some kind of like cliff notes from it, but I didn't watch the
whole interview, if I'm not mistaken, is on YouTube. It's good. It's really, really,
check
really,
it out.
really good.
Yeah. So I think I did see the YouTube link for it. Yeah.
Yep. If anybody didn't see the 60 Minutes interview with Coach Deion Sanders from Jackson State University that was on last Sunday at 6:00 East Coast time, you need to check that out on YouTube or go to, the website and pull it. But it's powerful. Oh my goodness. So powerful. Just
his interviews are always
interview.
There's he did another interview a couple weeks ago on it's a podcast called Earn Your Leisure. It's a Black-owned finance podcast. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen clips stemming from that interview where he talked about the money games that HBCUs and other FCS schools are subjected to about the FBF schools. And one of the things that he talked about also that has kind of been, there's been rumblings that I've seen, on social media is that, everybody knows that Coach Prime is a made man. He doesn't, there's nothing that, and I say this in a respectful way, there's absolutely nothing that HBCU can offer him that he already hasn't had or can offer himself. So, and we talked about him coming down to Jackson State coaching, obviously this is not a money thing. This is, just his love for coaching, being around football and really wanting to prove to, his peers that, hey, yes, I know I'm this phenomenal, legendary football player. I also want to be seen in that same light as a football coach. So far, so good. But one of the things that he's been doing a lot lately, and a lot of people, feel some type of way about it, is that obviously Coach Prime understands that because of his stature, his identity and stuff like that, he can say things from a level of, not power, but he can say things from a level of comfort that he knows that his job is not ever going to be threatened from an HBCU perspective of, hey,
Yeah.
Coach Prime, you know what? We're going to let you go because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
He knows that's not going to happen. So in his mind, he feels like he can, you know, speak on things that we know a lot of other HBCU coaches and administration can't and won't speak on because they know of, you know, the political pressure that you know, HBCUs, you know,
he touches on that in the interview. He talks about how he don't do politics and all this other crap. Look, this what it is. This what time it is. This what it's about. And Coach Prime said it. Now what? What?
So, you know, I think, you know, I'm loving, you know, the interviews he's been doing and stuff like that. And once again, you know, loving what he's doing at Jackson State. He just had Michael Strahan down there this week. He had Good Morning America down there at Jackson State. Nice. So, I mean, they just had the and you know, so I mean, it's like they got NFL scouts there every week, loving what he's doing. So, you know, shout out to Coach Prime and everything. Once again, if y'all haven't checked out his 60 Minutes interview, like Dr. Pitt said, go check it out. Because the man is a great interview and he drops a lot of gems, you know, not only about football, but about life too. So, And what you think? You said,
the only other thing I was going to say is Ted, you know, our good friend and family member that's on House Talk a lot, Ted Wright, he's calling the Howard's homecoming is today and they play Del State. So he put up Go Bisons. I said, no, Go Hornets.
I think Del State is definitely gonna
take to them.
Yeah, because I think Del State is 4-2 and Howard is not 4-2. And I said
not 4-2.
Not 4. Del State is 4-2. Howard not 4-2.
I was like, no, go Hornets, and I have a vested interest because Coach Rod Milstead is the head football coach at Del State, and he was a really good friend of my former husband. Craig had a tremendous amount of respect for Rod, and they were really good friends for a long time. So I'm wishing Coach Rod Milstead and the Delaware Hornets good luck today against the Howard University Bison. It's horrible to lose on your homecoming, but hey, somebody's got to do it.
Speaking of luck, we're gonna talk about luck with these picks later on because I know somebody who's gonna need some luck. Otherwise, Army green is gonna be their favorite color in a few weeks. But we'll get on that in a few. I ain't gonna name no names though.
Whatever, Ronnie. Whatever.
Did you like my song choice I sent you on Monday after the game? Oh, hey, did you tell the people, fans out there of House Talk Pregame, ask Dr. Pitts, did she FaceTime me last Sunday like she said she would at midnight?
I said that I was gonna FaceTime him if my Cowboys won. We lost, so I didn't FaceTime you. I said that I was going to FaceTime him if we won. I didn't say we were going to win. I said if we won, I hope that we won, and we did not win. What I do appreciate is that there was a valiant effort put forth. And let me tell you what his ignorant behind said. He was like, you know, there's one person in the world of all the Cowboys fans who was glad y'all lost. You know who that is, Dr. Pitts? You know who that is? No, Ronnie, who? Your quarterback, Dak Prescott. Whatever.
Am I lying? Am I lying?
Not entertaining your shenanigans, Ronnie.
All I'm saying.
Are we gonna do the mental health tip of the week, Ronnie? I have one.
Go. You go right on ahead.
So it's easy. So we know that this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we also know that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So the first tip, it's a two-part tip connected to both of those. The first thing that I want to say is, you know, I want folks to remember that it is imperative to put yourself first. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and therefore we're dedicated to putting yourself and your health ahead of your busy schedule. Self-examine, self-advocate, get screened, and support your own health and well-being. That's tip number one. And then the other thing is, if you or someone that you know is looking for help because you are experiencing, or someone that you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out for help. There's free and confidential help available to you. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. Again, that's 1-800-799-7233. It is 24/7 Confidential help is available to you. You do not have to tolerate abuse, neglect, or maltreatment from anybody for any reason. Help is available to you, and we strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to reach out for help if that is what you were going through, whether it be physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional and psychological abuse, financial abuse. You do not have to tolerate being abused. That's all I have.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. And shout out to all the women out there who are survivors of breast cancer, and all the other cancers as well.
Yeah.
And all the and shout out to all the people who also have, not shout out, but we're also, prayers and everything for the families who have lost a loved one to breast cancer and whatnot. Like you said, take care of your health, and if it runs in your family, make sure you get your pre-screen. That's another thing. I'm just gonna say this real quick. Speaking of that. People, go get a physical at least once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get that physical, do an entire blood panel once a year. At the bare minimum, do your blood work once. Hell, even if you don't get a physical, do your blood work once a year.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, if you have things like diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, gallbladder issues, thyroid issues, cancer, things like that run in your family, go get your blood work. You will be surprised. Diabetes runs rampant in my family. Like, I've lost both my, father's parents. Both of them lost their lives of diabetes. My father has diabetes. Half his siblings have diabetes. So it would be safe to say that my risk for diabetes is extremely high.
Right.
I get my blood work done at least once a year. And one of the main numbers I always check for all the diabetics, they know exactly what I'm talking about, your A1C.
Yeah.
I check that. As long as that number don't ever go above 6, I know I'm good. And, I make sure every year that I keep that under check, because it's so important to know we can't leave things up to chance, and I think that's one, and we talk about that as clinicians.
It's irresponsible.
Yeah. You have a responsibility to yourself,
and your family, the people that you profess to love and care about, to take care of yourself,
to know everything that's going on with you. And don't run from the news because that you haven't been doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Own up to it. There's always time to fix things and correct things. Yeah. Obviously, if you had poor health, your entire life, and you find yourself in a very terrible position, doesn't mean all hope is lost. It just means that you have to make serious, consistent changes gradually over time to do something about it. So go get your blood work done. Go get a physical. Like, if you have health insurance, most of them you don't even get charged for the physical.
Yeah.
And you might have a small copay for the blood work. But if you don't have insurance, I understand that if you don't have insurance, but use your local resources. There are so many community resources that will offer free blood work. Next to nothing, like $10, $15, $25, you get your blood, a full entire panel. Sometimes those cost hundreds of dollars to know the little things about your body. So make sure you go get that done, y'all, because it's not an excuse. As an adult, it's not an excuse to not know about your overall physical health.
Right. That's right.
So, all right, I'm done ranting on that. So, like I said, we have a very good topic lined up today, and we're talking about, having, a sense of yourself as an athlete in your athletic identity. And, I led the show with saying that, I myself felt like I had a very unhealthy athletic identity. And, what do you mean by that, Ronnie? Well, what I mean by that, and this is me speaking about me personally, I can't speak for everybody else in their athletic identity, but if you do some of these characteristics, behaviors that I did, you yourself might be having, you might have some unhealthy tendencies regarding your athletic identity. First and foremost, the biggest mistake I made in my life, looking back on it, was not the biggest mistake, but one of the things that I could have done better at was being a football player was my sole identity. I didn't identify as anything else outside of a football player. I didn't identify as a biracial male. I didn't identify as a heterosexual. I didn't identify as a son, whatever the case may be. I was a football player. That's all I identified as. And, to your point, when we talked about, you know, a lot of athletes, you know, they want to be recognized for their athletic performance,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And it's funny because I played a position where, you know, being recognized was one of the last things we got. But, you know, as far as like, you know, awards and acclaim and stuff like that, you know, but as much as I like the awards, I didn't necessarily care for them. I wanted the acclaim and approval from my teammates and my coaches. I cared more about that than what, you know, maybe, you know, getting all conference and all American and stuff like that. Those are cool awards and whatnot. But, you know, I wanted my teammates to also say like, oh yeah, no, he a hell of a football player. He a good football player. That's what I cared about the most, more than anything.
Yeah.
And you know, like we've talked about a lot over the last couple seasons, you know, about having a plan after football and stuff like that, and having resources and things around you for after football. You know, I thought I had a plan for after football. You know, I thought I had a plan, but I had no plan of action for that plan. You know, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I had no way of knowing how to use the skills and tools that I learned through football to translate that into the real world and into real life. And it took me a while to really figure that out. But you know, when we talk about having a healthy identity with your athletic career and stuff like that, you know, obviously, you know, we wear a lot of hats as individuals. We talk about this all the time, wearing a lot of hats and things like that. And, you know, the most important hat is the hat of self, you know, the hat that you identify with who you are as an individual, not your career, not, you know, with your status in society, things like that, but who you are as an individual. And a lot of people don't know who they are.
You just took the words right out of my mouth.
A lot of people do not know who they are because, and I'll speak from a man's perspective, you know, and if our guest pops up before our show is over with, this is something that he says all the time as well. A lot of men, you know, more times than not, if you ask a man who they are, 9 times out of 10 they'll identify with their career. You know, I'm a lawyer, I'm a judge, I'm a teacher, I'm a mechanic, I'm an engineer. Like nobody ever says, well, I'm me. And, you know, I didn't ask who you are or what you do for a living. I asked just who you are. You know, but for us as men, we oftentimes identify with what our career is, because for us, when we think about how society views us as men, we know that we are judged off what we can provide for others. And you know, that can be unfair at times, because sometimes when you always compare yourself to what somebody else has, you rob yourself of being able to appreciate what you've done for yourself. You know, if I sat there and compared my, you know, my career earnings and my success to a neurosurgeon, I'm gonna be damn near disappointed every time. Like if I compare my career to Myron Rolle, who was a famous neurosurgeon, former collegiate athlete, former Rhodes Scholar, played at FSU, played in the NFL for a couple of years, but as a neurosurgeon, phenomenal person. If I compared my career success and who I was compared to him, I would probably feel like a terrible person, because if I compare my accolades and my achievements to his, it's not even close. But my achievements that I've done in my life, for what I've been able to control, I'm happy with. I'm satisfied with that. And I was imagining he's satisfied with his too. But when we get to comparing and things like that, we rob ourselves of the ability to appreciate what we have. And we see that in athletics a lot too. And we see this with a lot of younger athletes. And social media has kind of perpetuated this as well. A lot of younger
Can I pause
athletes,
you for a minute, Ronnie? Because I want to plug on that real quick. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was talking to one of my clients on Thursday who said something profound. And this is one of my younger clients who's a former scholar athlete, who said, you know, Dr. Pitts, a lot of people don't realize that our generation is so deeply and adversely influenced by social media. It's like, it's scary. Like, so many people are trying to measure themselves up to what they see on social media, that it really does have a negative impact on our mental health. And I said, I get that, but I guess, and maybe part of it is just my age or what have you. What I struggle with, where some of the millennials and the Gen Zs are concerned, is this. Social media is a big smoke screen. It's a big smoke screen that people, many of which, not all, so tell folks, don't go putting words in my mouth, many of which are living a lie. They are some of the most inauthentic people to ever walk the face of the earth. And social media allows them, if you will, to hide behind this huge fallacy that is shielding them from being who they really are. And many of them might not even know who they really are because they're so busy projecting this false persona that they got to go. I said, who do you know anywhere on the face of the planet that's happy-go-lucky every single solitary day and every minute of their life? But that's what they're projecting.
You know what social media is? Social media is our mind in somewhat of a more physical form. I didn't want to say subconscious because, you know, social media isn't our subconscious. It could be. I think social media is a combination of our conscious versus subconscious in a sense, where you know how we see ourselves and most people don't like to see themselves with fallacies. Whether you are a bad communicator, whether you have terrible physical health, most people in their head don't see themselves with fallacies. They always see the best version of themselves in their head. Social media is nothing more than people seeing the best version of themselves played out on a platform that is almost like social media is nothing more than a consciousness in a sense. I can't hold Facebook. I can't touch Facebook. Like, yeah, they have a physical building, but the platform itself, I can't touch that, feel it, or anything. But just like in my head, I can think of things that give me feelings and stuff. I might not be able to produce that thought tangibly, like physically, but I still get the same physical sensations from it. Exactly what social media does. We play our conscious mind and subconscious mind out for everybody to see.
That's real. That's real, and it's raw. And if more people could sort of wrap themselves around that and recognize, here's the thing. You've seen the commercial, Ronnie, with Morgan Freeman and Tom Brady, and he's reading a letter that Tom Brady wrote to himself, and he's talking about how you don't want to be the next so-and-so, you want to be Tom Brady, right? You want to be the next you. You want to be the best you. And that's what I say to people. It's like comparing yourself to other people, to me, is egregious, right? It's like, why on earth do you want to be somebody else? Why do you, even athletically, right? You don't need to be the next Tom Brady. You don't need to be the next Aaron Rodgers. You don't need to be the next Michael Irvin. You don't need to be the next whomever. You need to be the first and best you that you can be. I want to share something with you that I hope my husband texted me that Tom Brady was writing that letter to a young man. Thank you, honey, for correcting me. But here's something powerful, Ronnie, and I share this with my clients sometimes who are dealing with this whole people pleasing and comparing themselves to others. Wisdom is the ability to recognize difference in environments, moments, and people. Your ability to discern the divine difference in everything around you decides your success. The law of difference has never been questioned. Atheists, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, Protestants, Catholics, Gentiles, no one questions the existence of difference. It is so obvious to all of us. Light versus darkness, left versus right, eyes versus ears, hands versus feet. The law of difference is all around you. Difference communicates. Difference is a warning. Difference is a preparation. Difference deserves celebration and recognition. Difference is valuable. The purpose of difference is completion. Nothing made is whole. Nothing. Everything is a part. Your eyes require a view. Your ears require sound. Your mind requires thought. Nothing succeeds alone. Your difference is necessary for another's completion. There are 7 differences that will decide your success in life. Identify your personal difference. Let me say that again. Identify your personal difference. Identify the difference in a moment. Identify the difference in those around you. Identify the difference in an opportunity. Identify the difference in an environment. Identify the difference in the season that you are entering. Identify the difference in right and wrong. This is all about birthing such an awareness of your uniqueness within you that you are able to embrace it, nurture it, and guard it. Our hope for you is that you will be able to market it so that others can know your distinctive difference from those around you, that your difference can be treasured and ultimately rewarded. Sameness creates comfort. Difference creates your reward. Celebrate, seize, and identify your difference and enjoy great success. And on that, I want to add, nobody's going into the NFL draft, the NBA draft, the MLB draft. I'm like, ooh, I hope that I'm not like so-and-so. No, you want to go in the you want to go in the best round that you possibly can because you want to be the best you that you can be. They're not drafting you because you're the next Tom Brady. They're looking at drafting you because you're the best you. And it's up to you to develop your skill set and to be the best you that you can be.
Right.
And a big part of that is being able to put your finger on the pulse of who you are authentically and affirming that yourself first, like this young man at Hampton did, finally getting to that place in space where he recognized, you know what? If I want to be accepted for who I am authentically, I have to accept me first. That's the essence of true authenticity. Affirming, because we set the standard for how other people treat us. So if you're not self-accepting, why would anybody else accept you?
Or if you don't love yourself, how can you expect somebody else to love you?
Right. Stop sending your representatives, folks. Stop pretending to be somebody you're not. If you're wounded, say that. If you're fractured, say that. If you have trauma, own it and get help for it. If you recognize that you're not, I'm gonna give props to you, don't fall at your chair. If you're not Jalen Hurts and you ain't benching 600, well, what you need to do to be at that mug? He drug my whole line, Ronnie. He just drug my whole line into the end zone.
I think he got like half of Texas state records for weightlifting.
Like he's disrespectful. I know, look, my husband is, I'm gonna give credit, but you know, I'm real. I give credit where credit due. He drugged my whole line into the end zone. But the brother is benching 600 plus pounds.
Strong kid, man.
Yeah. Like you,
dude.
If you have to, you cannot, hear me well, folks. You cannot conquer something that you won't even acknowledge is an area of opportunity for you. You don't have to see it as a weakness. Let's reframe that more holistically and empower yourself. It's an area of opportunity. It's an area for growth. It's an area for improvement. It doesn't have to be a weakness. It's just room for growth and development.
Right. And I think, you know, to piggyback on your point in a sense, I think the one thing that I know we do as athletes is, you know, I think it's kind of hard for athletes not to compare themselves to somebody that, you know, has been successful. For example, you know, when we look at like Michael Jordan, arguably one of the greatest players of all time, no debating that whatsoever. Then we have somebody like Kobe Bryant, who literally, Kobe Bryant was like, you know, I can't be Mike, but I can be close enough as possible and make it my own way. And it, you know, and they always show the side by sides in the tapes, you know, like Kobe literally, you know, mirrored his game off of Michael Jordan. However, to your point though, he made it his own identity.
Yeah, he took ownership.
Mamba mentality, like
right.
We look at all the great players. Like for example, when I was in high school, when I was playing defense and stuff, I used to look at old film of like Reggie White and Warren Sapp and stuff like that to, mirror, some of their moves and stuff like that. Not because I was trying to, I knew I wasn't gonna be the next Warren Sapp, but if I could use the moves that he was using because they're working for him, I knew they were gonna work for me, and I could make them work in my own way. So
learning from the best.
Exactly. So, what we're trying to tell you all is, that you can gain inspiration and insight and resources from others, but don't try to be that person, because you can't be that person. How they acquired that knowledge, how they acquired that experience is unique to them individually.
Yeah.
How you get your knowledge and how you gain your experience is unique to you individually. And so, what are some things that we can, do to kind of help, develop a healthy athletic identity? Mm-hmm. Well, one of the first things we can do is creating a healthy life balance. And one of the ways you can do that, and this is, whether you're a professional athlete, collegiate athlete, or a high school athlete, this is something that you can do now and that we should do all the time. Identify your top 5 priorities. And look, if sports is a part of that, if sports is a part of your top 5 priorities, that's fine. But don't let it be your sole priority. Like if I were to ask you to make a list of 1 through 5 and tell me all your priorities in your life, sports cannot be the only one on that list.
Right.
It can be on the list, but it should not be the only thing. Once again, you can have an identity tied into athletics, but it cannot be your sole identity. So when we talk about your top 5 priorities, obviously, if you're a high school, collegiate, or professional athlete, yes, your athletic identity is a top priority. But also, if you're a professional athlete, also your business ventures and your business side of it. If you're a collegiate athlete, the academic side of it is the top priority. Your social life is the top priority. Your overall mental health and your physical health are top priorities. Your spiritual health is a top priority. So when we talk about priorities, what are things that you prioritize in your life that are important to you outside of sports? Yes, sports can be included, but outside of sports, what are some other priorities that you take pride in? Another thing, drop unnecessary. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Wait. And I'm gonna plug as you do each one. So within the context of everything that you just said, I want to make sure that folks understand how important it is, Ronnie, to ask for what they need, right? Folks you always say it, there's no I in team, right? It takes collaboration. It takes community. It takes a village to help us to achieve more, right? It takes people that are stronger than you, people that are better than you, people who know more than you. There he is. People who know more than you, to be able to help you to achieve the levels of success that you desire to achieve. So you need to be able to have a level of comfort and being able to ask for what you need as you're setting these goals, because more than likely, you're not going to be able to achieve them all by yourself. You're going to need some help with somebody to add value to you. There he is, sir. We're starting to get worried about you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, good sir.
My apologies for the delay.
It's all good, man.
I was worried. I was like, wait, sir, what's wrong?
We said we know on the West Coast y'all wake up with the waves and everything. On the East Coast we got to wake up with alarm clocks and everything, man.
Yeah, I my apologies. I'm dealing with a baby that we're trying to make sure does not have a severe illness. So
oh man,
you're fine. You have our blessing. You are totally all right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the patience and your patience with this process for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, shoot, we appreciate you, taking the time out with that. We hope everything is okay with your child and everything, and hoping for a speedy recovery.
It is it's a beautiful thing to make sure that everything is okay. So I appreciate that.
No doubt. So ladies and gentlemen, for those who are wondering who we're talking to, if you didn't get a chance to catch his powerful episode. The last time on season 2, we have Mr. Sanyika Street here, the fire starter. Welcome again, man. Thank you for coming back on today, man. So we're in the middle of talking about affirming your athletic identity for men and women and whatnot. And some of the things we've kind of talked about, and I kind of shared prior to you coming on, is, you know, I felt like I identified having an unhealthy athletic identity. And part of one of my fallacies in that was because that was my only identity. So, you know, we talked about, there's one mistake you should not make, is having your athletic identity be your sole identity. We just gave the tip of, you know, you should have at least five priorities within your life, whether you're a high school athlete, collegiate athlete, professional athlete. You should have at least 5 priorities in your life. Can sports be one of those 5? Absolutely, especially if you're a high school, collegiate, or professional athlete. Obviously, that is how, you know, you were trying to achieve a lot of other things, because we know not only can sports be rewarding athletically, sports can be rewarding business-wise, social-wise. A whole bunch. Sports has many benefits outside of just, you know, being on the athletic field and whatnot. So having 5 priorities is extremely important. So saying you could, man, jump right on in, man. What are some tips that you have, and what are some things that you've learned along the way from being a former student athlete that you've learned that can help, you know, people have a healthy sense of affirming their athletic identity?
You know, I was thinking about this topic this week when I got your email, Dr. Pitts, and I was thinking about what it really means to affirm ourselves in as, you know, as people. And then I saw this TikTok, and it was a clip of a brother who was breaking down the numbers, and he said there's 1 million kids in cities and suburbs around the country, the U.S., right, competing for 34 spots on NBA team.
Wow.
Right, so 1 million kids competing for 34 spots on NBA teams. And that's just, you know, in basketball. And I remember also an NCAA commercial that said that you know, 95% of the kids who are playing collegiate sports are not going to go pro.
Yep. They'll go professional or something other than sports.
Exactly.
They used to play that commercial after every commercial break, it seemed like.
For sure, right? Because they're going to go professional in something other than sports. And so then the question then becomes, as I was thinking about it, I was like, you know, what are you actually competing for? Because if you bring that to somebody who's competing, to one whose dream is to make it to the NBA, the very first thing that they're going to say is, well, I'm going to be the exception to the rule. I'm going to be the outlier. Right? I'm going to be the one that makes it. And so I used to think to myself, is that determinism? Is that their determination and their resilience and their willingness to just fight through adversity and just like make whatever it takes to get to the next stage and to get to the next level? And is that really what it is? Or is it because their identity is so entrenched in the idea that the only thing that they can be successful in is sports, that they will not choose to find another pathway to becoming a success in other aspects of their life?
I'm going with the latter. I'm gonna say about 80-20 to the latter.
I would agree. Yeah. And so because here's the thing, right? Because if you went to that same kid who was like, I'm going to be the one that makes it. I'm going to be the one that makes it. I'm going to be the one that makes it out. I'm going to be the one that feeds my family. Because that's what he's thinking about. He's thinking about the fact that he's going to make it out. He's thinking about the fact that he's going to be the one that feeds his family, buys his mom a house, you know, doesn't have to live in his current living conditions or environment. He's going to be the one that makes it, transcends to whatever it is that he says that he wants to do. Like, that's the thing that he's thinking in his head. And then what if you told him, yo, I got a guaranteed opportunity that's going to get you $10 million. And the only thing you got to do is not play the sport that you want to play. Wow. Guaranteed.
How old am I? How old am I?
Let's call it, you know what? I'm not even gonna make you 18. Let's call you 20.
Okay, so I done done a couple years.
Done a couple years.
Because I ain't gonna lie to you. I kid you. You think I'm joking? I kid you not. If you'd have asked me 20-year-old Ronnie, why I left Virginia State so quick?
Pew!
We were 4-6 that season.
Right. You start thinking about coaches. You start thinking about their cleats. But man, I'm so tired of
Maybe I don't know
cleats.
sports after all.
Right. I don't even know about it. Like, what is this sport? I don't even know what it is, right?
Sports, how you spell that?
And you tell me you got a 10 million guarantee.
Wow. To not play.
To not play. Right?
Wow.
And he's like, well, how would I make that 10 million? How would I make that $10 million? Right? How would I make it? And then that became that conversation in my head. It's like, what if I could actually accomplish every objective that I ever wanted to accomplish? And the only thing I needed to do was to believe that I had the skills to make whatever I wanted to make.
And
because
that,
it puts you.
I'm glad you.
Let me just offer this real quick, Ronnie, because I think we're talking about the same. It puts you right up against your belief system, right? Right. Because then the question becomes, how in the world would I make $10 million? Pause for a moment. How in the world would I make $10 million? Is that a question about strategy or about belief?
Wow. That's profound.
I used to go ahead, Ronnie.
I mean, shoot.
I just used to think about. Please speak.
If I had to answer that question, honestly, it would probably be more about belief than strategy, and I think that's because for me, where I'm at today, still in the healing process, and I know me and you've had a personal conversation outside of the podcast and everything, and I shared that a little bit. You know, like where I'm at today, I'm a lot further than where I was maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, but I know that road is still long. And a lot of that is, you know, when you don't see people around you doing what in your head you feel like you can do, it's like, where do you pull that motivation or that determination from? Where do you get that dose of hope from? You know, because everybody around you.
Can we pause on that? Can we pause on that? You're going to say, because everyone around you, right? Is what? It's a lack of belief as opposed to lack of strategy. And I'm a victim of that too. And it's something that I've had to correct for myself, is because once again, my ceiling for myself was always based off my environment around me. You know, well, it's like, I know I can be successful. I know I can do a lot, but I'm gonna have to figure this out on my own, because those around me, their ceilings, they've already predetermined their ceilings based off their external factors and based off their environment. For sure. So
already my ceiling is being influenced by somebody else's environment that I haven't even had a chance to discover my true ceiling. So to your point, when you ask yourself, how can I make $10 million? We know that in reality, there is a strategy to make 10 million. But to your point, not having that belief, that sense of hope, for a lot of people, I'm not going to put out a number because that would just be unfair. But for a lot of people, not having that belief and the hope in themselves to do that, you can give them a surefire strategy. You could write them a check for $10 million and they still wouldn't believe the check is real. They wouldn't even go cash it, because they'd be like, nah, ain't no way. Yeah. You know? And so, I wholeheartedly believe that, man. That man, yeah.
Let me jump on that too, because another thing that I want to encourage our viewers to check out if they haven't. There's a documentary on Netflix, and maybe some have seen it. I just saw it for the first time yesterday, on Jamie Foxx's journey to success. And some may know, some not. You know, he's from Texas, born and raised. He's from Terrell, Texas, and he played football. I believe he was a quarterback for his high school team, and did phenomenal. Was a phenomenal athlete. But as many may know, he was adopted by his grandmother. His father ended up being incarcerated. The documentary didn't say anything about his mother, but she was adamant that he was going to be a culture diversified individual, as was what his father. So he made him play tennis. He made him play football. But like he instilled all of these things in him, and they encouraged him, to your point about people around you and how they can inform how you think and feel and function and navigate life. And one of the things that the documentary stated, and as they showed these different interviews that Jamie Foxx did, was that He had those two people, his grandmother and his father, who instilled in him the belief that he could do and be anything he wanted. So his music, his comedy, his acting ability, his athletic ability. They talked about Django and how he had his own horse and could ride because he was this cultured, diversified individual that was created to be that way. So what that instilled in him was a belief system that he, regardless of what the obstacles were, because he grew up in racist Texas back in the, you know, in the 60s and the 70s, where when they, in the footage, it showed where there were still segregation and, you know, having to drink from the colored water fountain and go to the colored bathroom. So he grew up in the heart of racist Texas, where he dealt with a wealth of adversities, but the two most important people in his life growing up said, despite all this, you can still do and be and have and give and create an experience. And to your point, to both of the point that you made, from a clinical perspective, when I think about when I'm working with my clients around getting themselves realigned with their authentic self, one of the things that I point out to them is that we want to encourage you to follow your joy. We want to encourage you to pursue your goals and your hopes and your aspirations and all of those things. But what ends up happening a lot of the time, to both of your point, is they're so used to being surrounded by toxicity. They're so used to being surrounded by negativity that they're navigating life always expecting the other shoe to drop. That check can't be real. And somebody write me a $10 million check, we go on to jail. You know, we about to go to federal prison, because, you know, they're constantly waiting for something bad to happen. And therein lies you're canceling out by default the law of circulation, the law of attraction, because your thoughts and your feelings determine the vibrational frequency that your mind is functioning on. And you're putting all of this fear, all of this doubt, all of this disbelief out into the universe. And we live in a universe that operates off reciprocity.
Right.
You're bringing it back. So you never end up achieving the things that you say you want to achieve, because in your heart of hearts, you don't even believe it's possible.
Right. And so, Sayika, I believe you also are coming on next week as well, right?
And for the
29th, or is it maybe the show after that?
Yeah, I'm scheduled for both weekends. We actually have for
self-acceptance and self-rejection is next week's show. It's
absolutely.
Look, folks, it's all the men folk. Dr. Pitt's gonna be it's all testosterone next week's show. I'm on vacation.
One of the things that I wanted to speak into what you just shared, Dr. Pitts, around toxicity. You said toxicity and what was the other shoe to drop was toxicity and
I think I said chronic negativity. Doubt and disbelief. I said disbelief.
Doubt and disbelief, right? So so doubt and disbelief, so toxicity and all of that. But there's another, I think there's another component that operates at a hum level, right? So like so toxicity is like a spike, right? It's like a spike. It's like this thing that permeates and pierces the sound layer, and it operates up here. But there's one of the things I was telling somebody is that have you ever been in an environment where they're playing music at a certain decibel level, and then after it's like you walk in there and it feels loud, but then after a while it feels like a hum. It feels like because all the music is playing at the same decibel level. And so even though it's loud music, it almost sounds like silence. Right. So it operates at and that hum, that layer is mediocrity.
Ooh.
So this is the invisible one. This is the one that most people don't hear, because like I can see a spike in toxicity. I know when someone is violent or abusive or like directly doubtful, or like that kind of thing. But the one thing that's hard to see is the mediocrity.
Because it's the normal. It's
the norm. It's this layer right here. And then it goes, oh, these are the people that are around me. So when you talked about like that the people around you could influence your behavior, There's something called the mirror neuron that we use to be able to cohabitate, to commune as humans, right? We mirror each other's behavior, right? So it's not a possibility, it's a guarantee, it is a certainty that the people in your environment you will begin to mirror.
That's right.
Right.
And,
so when we
and especially as one of the things I always tell kids is, when you see toxicity, chaos, and stuff like that in your childhood, I always tell parents the one thing kids will always resort to when they find themselves in a similar situation as adults is exactly what you did when they were children and you were the adult in the house, and they mirror that same exact behavior. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue on.
No, you are spot on. They will mirror the parents' behavior, and we will mirror the behavior of the people in our environment. So the question is if you're trying to strive to great heights, like for instance, I have the environment that I have created to help me to accelerate to the places I am looking to go is night and day compared to where I was 7 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I mean, so for instance, when I'm talking to people about building my brand, I'm talking to people who have just exited their companies for 8-figure paydays. When I'm talking to people about who I get to become in terms of my own personal evolution, I am talking to individuals who have gone through, the lowest of lows and the highest of highs, and who have achieved, who are leaders of other individuals. When I'm talking to people about growing my personal brand, my business, when I'm talking about growing myself, I'm talking to people like you talked about the 5 tips. Always have somebody who is ahead of you, who is exactly where it is that you want to be, period.
Don't be the smartest person in the room.
Always. If you don't have somebody, look, Ronnie, real quick, who was Biggie's mentor?
Diddy, I guess.
Diddy. Boom. There you go. It took 3 seconds for you to identify who helped Biggie get to where he needed to be.
Yeah.
Right? When you think about Whitney Houston, you think about people like, Clive Davis and people like that helped her to rap. When you greatness creates greatness, right? Success leaves clues. There's breadcrumbs. And so the people that are successful at the level that you see, they had mentorship, they had guidance, they had people
monsters too.
Monsters.
Yep.
Not just small fish, monsters.
Yeah.
And we were talking about before you came on, I think for younger people, especially like, my age and younger, one of the detriments is, social media. And one of the ways I define social media is nothing more than our conscious and subconscious playing out on something that is not even tangible. It's like taking our mind and putting it on a platform for everybody to see. Because like you said, a lot of times we don't see the fallacies within us. We only see ourselves in a good light. No matter how terrible we are externally, internally, more times than not, we will see ourselves in a positive light. Obviously, if you have depression, something like that, whatever the case may be. But for more times than not, most people see themselves without fallacy. So when they look on social media, they have that same mindset. When I look at somebody else and I see that they're only displaying their good side, what they feel is their best representation of them, I automatically say that's who that person is. Without knowing nothing about them, without knowing nothing about their background, their personal story, what they do behind the scenes when they log off social media. I'm basing everything off of what I see on this post, on this story, on your timeline, whatever the case may be. And now that's my new ceiling. Well, if I can't do this, then none of this matters. And I see a lot of, and I see it in a lot of high school athletes too, because obviously we know that not only sports is about status, but it's also a popularity contest too. That's why we have ranking systems. That's why we have who's the number 1 player in the country, who's the number 1 team in the country. And we put so much emphasis on it, even though in reality, it is a subjective based thing. It is based off who just happens to be alive, who just happens to be engaged in this said topic at this said time on this said occurrence. But we value it so much because we feel like we always have to have a ceiling for how we compare ourselves. And Dr. Pitts, you mentioned about comparison earlier too. one of my favorite quotes is, comparison is the thief of joy.
I'm going to touch on both of those again from a clinical context too, before we wrap up today.
I mentioned earlier, if I compare my life as a student athlete and post-student athlete life to somebody like Myron Roll, who's a neurosurgeon, from the outside looking in, I might be like, well, damn, I'm not doing nothing with my life. But that would be so disrespectful and so robbing of the accomplishments I have made, because accomplishments are subjective. We try to make so many things objective when in reality they're subjective. My level of success, how I got there, what it looked like, will always be different and unique to me compared to Dr. Pitts, Sanika, anybody else.
I want to add to that, and I want to piggyback on what you said, but I want to circle back to when we were talking about the toxicity and the environment, right? For us clinically, that's the systemic piece, recognizing that we don't live in a vacuum. We don't live on a deserted desert island by ourselves. We're a part of these ecosystems, and these ecosystems are the people, places, and things that have the ability to influence and inform how we think, feel, function, and navigate this thing called life. I tell my clients all the time that we all experience these spoken and non-spoken messages that exist from the time we're born throughout our life's journey that inform the narrative scripts that we create. And those narrative scripts, whether they be positive or negative, inform how we think, feel, function, and navigate life. So when you think about your authenticity, when you think about affirming who you really are, when you think about how you're going about setting goals and hopes and dreams and aspirations and what have you, one of the things that you absolutely positively have to do is develop the courage to stand up for yourself, right? As you were speaking, and people, people that are closest to me know that the reasons that you all discussed is exactly why I left home. It's exactly why, as a small child, I started saying that I cannot wait to get away from here. Not because home is not where the heart is. People, I'm from small town America. Salem, New Jersey, especially when I was a child, was a lot more positive a place to be than it is today. Now it's identified as one of the poorest towns in the entire state of New Jersey. So, with that level of poverty comes a whole bunch of other issues, but it was my recognition. It was my recognition that within my family system, within my community, if there's got to be more than this, Sanika. Like, as I look around me every day, my thought, and it's not about narcissism or grandiosity or Lauren thinking that she's better than anyone. I believe to the depths of my heart, mind, spirit, and soul that I was deserving of a better quality of life than what I saw going on around me every day. And I stood up for that. And I never budged. I never, ever, ever, ever budged. And I carried myself, even in the mistakes that I made, I carried myself, conducted myself, and spoke as someone that believed to the depths of my heart, mind, spirit, and soul that I was created to be royalty. And I never, and people on the outside looking in, oh, she thinks she's better than everybody else. Oh, them Pittses think they this. Oh, they Pittses think they that. And I said, you know what? It wasn't until later on that somebody said to me, you don't have to take ownership of that narrative, Lauren. What they're really saying to you, actually, one of my supervisors said this to me. He said, what they're really saying to you is people don't know you. Those people, them haters, those naysayers, they don't really know you. But the moment you walk into the room, your belief system, your confidence, your assurance that you believe that you deserve to be in that room illuminates things that other people are not. All I did was say, good morning, Sanika. I didn't say it all cocky. All I said was, good morning. How's everybody doing today? And you're getting the turn up there. So I want to emphasize how important it is to stand up for who you authentically are. One of the things Ronnie pointed out at the beginning was the scholar athlete from Hampton University that came out this past week and finally acknowledged that he's gay. You know how liberating that is? You know how amazing that is for him to finally acknowledge, you know what? This is who I am. It wasn't a choice, he said. This is just who I am. And on that, one more thing, I'm gonna shut up. I think that people need to learn how to accept their good. We grow up in these toxic environments that tell us that the folk are real quick to tell you what you're never gonna be. They're real quick to tell you, like, sorry behind mama, they're like, sorry behind daddy, your family ain't S and ain't gonna ever be S, and all these other things, right? And these young scholar athletes become terrified of accepting the good that they were inherently born with, because it's got trash dumped on it. It's got trash dumped on it. And let me tell you this, and then I'm gonna hush, because Ronnie y'all gonna wrap it up and he gonna send us home and we'll do what we need to do. Anybody that feels the need to compare themselves to other people and not accept the inherent good that is inside of them is dishonoring themselves and holding a grudge against who they are authentically. And they're making a conscious decision to rob themselves of all of the joy and all of the fulfillment that comes from being authentically who you were purposed, predestined, and born to be.
Amen. Amen. So, ladies and gentlemen, Sanyika, we're gonna have you wrap us up with one final point real quick, and then we definitely gonna have you back on next week to continue this conversation along also with our topic for next week, because this is we can talk about this subject for hours. But go ahead and leave us with one final tip or gem that you would like to leave with us, and then we're gonna get into these picks real quick.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. Again, it's an honor to be here. Again, my apologies for the delay in my arrival. I'm really moved by the conversation around identity and affirming who you really want to be. A few things real quick is that you asked what the tips are that I had. Number one, have somebody who's ahead of you.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody who's ahead of you. Number two, have somebody that you can walk with, an individual that you can walk with, a peer, who's also a representation of where it is that you want to be. Meaning, if you look at the person next to you and you don't feel that person is affirming of where it is that you were looking to be, then you need to, this is an opportunity for you to forcefully find another individual, right, that you can walk with. Number three, not only do you need one individual, you need a community. So there's one person that you can confide in and a community of individuals that are striving towards the same level of excellence, right? And so a community. Number four is to make sure that you are in the process of actively giving tutelage, mentorship, or guidance to somebody who's looking to get where you're looking to go. Like, these are all components, and it doesn't matter if you're already successful or where you believe that you really want to be. In this moment, this is the moment that these conversations create the fuel of your own self-belief that will get you to where it is that you really want to go. Somebody who's ahead of you, somebody who walks beside you, a community of other individuals that walk beside you. That's what AAU is. That's what all those, the invite camps, that's what the excellence camps. And then having somebody who's looking to get where you want to go, who you're willing to mentor and to guide on on whatever basis feels in alignment for you, so that you could see that your work and give yourself the proof, because that's essentially what you need, is the proof. What we need is the proof, and you get the proof from the mentor, you get the proof from the tutelage, you get the proof that you can get to where it is that you're looking to go.
Amen. Thank you, man. Thank you for that. So, Sanyika, as we get ready to wrap up, man, we did something different this season. As everybody knows, we love to represent our HBCUs and everything. And if anybody's familiar with College Game Day that comes on ESPN, they do a multitude of picks each week, and they kind of keep a score of the best record. And then I don't know if they do individually to whoever has the best record at the end of the season. But me and Dr. Pitts have a nice friendly wager this season, where if whichever one of us has the best record at the end of the season, which it'll be me. But so Dr. Pitts is preparing to wear an Eagles jersey at the end of the season when she loses this friendly bet. However, our guests during the season, that football season, whichever one of our guests has the best record, we will hook them up with a special little prize and whatnot for participating in our picks of these HBCU games. So I know the best record we have from one of our guests, I want to say, is 5-5. So there's a good chance that you can come at the end of the season and set the bar high for the last final weeks, because we'll have a couple more people picking next week as well. So we'll go ahead and get into these picks. So last week, Dr. Pitts was 5-5. I was 6-4 last week. So this week, our first game is North Carolina Central versus South Carolina State. So Sanyika, I'll go with you first, and Dr. Pitts, and then I'll make my selection. I think North Carolina Central is, I want to say, 5-2. South Carolina State is, I think, like 2-5. So kind of a lopsided game. So who you got?
I'm going with Central.
Central? All right, bet. Oh, Dr. Pitts, who you taking?
You said it's Central and who?
South Carolina State.
I'm going with Central.
All right, Central. I'm going with Central as well. All right, our next game, we got Texas Southern versus Alcorn State. I want to say Texas Southern is 4-3. Alcorn State is 4-3. I think 4-3 as well. Sanyika, who you got?
Alcorn State.
Alcorn State. All right. Dr. Pitts, who you got?
I'm going with Texas.
TSU. All right. I think I'm gonna swing with Alcorn as well.
I saw the Dallas Cowboys Cup. I would imagine that there's going to be some Texas.
It's funny though, Sanyika, you mentioned about mediocrity earlier, and I just always ask Cowboys fans, no matter how successful or unsuccessful they are in their individual lives, how can they continue to cheer for a team that has been the embodiment of mediocrity since I was 3 years old? But we will have a whole separate show for that episode as well. All right, next we have Shawan versus Bowie. Both teams are 4-3 coming into this week.
What's the first? Bowie versus who?
Shawan University. Shawan is in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. Both are 4-3. Bowie came off of an overtime loss last week to Union. Shawan beat Virginia State last week 43-40. So it should be a high scoring game.
Got it. I'll go with Bowie. It's hard to come off of it's hard to, overtime wins can spur some things, and it's hard to sustain that level of high power. So let's do that.
I feel you. I think I'm gonna take Shawan this week to come off their high scoring game and beat Bowie. I just don't like Bowie. It's just respectfully, Dr.
I'm going with Bowie.
My haters have arrived. All right, next we got Virginia State versus Elizabeth City. Virginia State is sitting at 4-3. Elizabeth City, I want to say, is 2-5. Who you got, Sanyika?
Elizabeth City.
Oh, man.
I'm going with State.
Which state? They're both state schools.
Oh, Virginia. You're so stupid. What's wrong with you, man?
All right, next we have Livingstone versus Shaw. Now I must say this is the NFL equivalent of the Butt Cheek Bowl. Both teams are 1-6, so fighting for not to be in last place with this game. So there is something to always fight for in the game. So who y'all got?
Who's the last game? So what are the name of the teams?
Livingstone versus Shaw.
Livingstone versus Shaw. What was the last game?
I know they both lost. I don't know who Livingstone played last week. I want to say Shaw lost to I want to say they lost to Fayetteville State. So, but I'm not sure who Livingstone played, but both are 2-5, not 1-6. They're both 2-5. So
I'll go with Livingstone.
Okay. Livingstone might have the best looking turf field in all the HBCU football as well. They have a baby blue turf field. So I'm gonna take Shaw in this one. I like them in this matchup. Livingstone, they've been all right, but I think Shaw has been in a lot of close games this year. I think they just haven't been able to get over the hump. But who you got, Dr. Pitts?
Shaw.
Shaw, that.
Mhm.
All right, next we got Fayetteville State versus Johnson C. Smith. Fayetteville State, I want to say, is 3-4. Johnson C. Smith is 1-6. Who y'all got?
You said Fayetteville is 3-4?
Yeah, Fayetteville's 3-4. Johnson C. Smith is 1-6.
Let's go Fayetteville.
Fayetteville, all right, bet. Dr. Pitts, who you got?
Fayetteville.
Fayetteville, all right. Vietnam for the win. All right, now this is going to be an interesting game. Both teams are 5-2. We have Tuskegee versus Lane College. Both teams are 5-2. Both teams are still, I think they're both still competing for a shot at the conference championship at the end of the season. So this will definitely be a highly contested game today. Who y'all got?
I want Tuskegee.
Tuskegee. All right, the Airmen.
I'll go with Lane.
Lane. All right, I think I'm gonna rock with you, Sayik. I think I'm gonna take Lane too. Lane has actually surprised. I think they beat I forgot who they beat a couple weeks ago, but they beat a pretty good school a couple weeks ago. So I was shocked by that. Next we got Albany State versus Savannah State. Albany State is 6-1. Yeah, Albany State 6-1. Savannah State is 3-4.
I'll go with Albany.
Albany. All right.
Albany.
Albany. I'm taking Albany too. And we got 2 games left. All right, now this is another actually these last 2 games are not high rating spectacular games, but we got Winston-Salem State versus St. Augustine's College. Who y'all got? Both Winston-Salem is 2-5. St. Augs is 1-6.
I'll go with Winston-Salem State.
Winston-Salem. All right. Who you got, Dr. Pitts?
Winston.
Winston-Salem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take St. Augs for the upset. It's not much of an upset, but I'm taking for the upset. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, we have Bethune-Cookman University versus Mississippi Valley State. Both teams are 2-5.
I'm going with Bethune.
You say you going Mississippi?
I said Bethune-Cookman.
Oh, my bad. My fault.
Yeah, you be trying to cheat me.
I'll go with BCC.
All right, Bethune. I'm gonna rock with Mississippi. All right, y'all. So the picks are locked in. Check back next week to see how everybody did. Once again, thank you all for joining our conversation today. It was very powerful. Sayika, thank you, man, for joining in, man. Once again, our prayers are for your child and everything. Hope they have a speedy recovery. Hope they're feeling better. And I hope you all stay healthy as well, too. You know, I'm learning as I go how quickly you can get sick when a child is sick.
Get germs.
It's a lot different when you're the kid getting sick. You know, you kind of expect that, but when you're the adult, these babies, they get sick a lot for whatever reason. But man, hoping for a speedy recovery, hoping everybody stays healthy as well. Thank you all for joining. Be back here next week, same time, same place. Once again, enjoy your weekend. We'll holler at you then.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.